Hi, this is Pat Iyer with Legal Nurse Podcast, and today we're going to be talking about something that affects every one of you who's listening who wants more business and more cases. And I think that's probably the majority of you. I have with me Michael Goldberg, who I have known for, maybe 10 years, Michael, I think.
At least.
We met at the National Speakers Association chapter for New Jersey, and Michael is a networking specialist as well as a speaker, an educator, an author, and he is an amateur boxer, so you don't want to test Michael's skills in the ring because I've heard that he's really good. He has a firm called Knockout Networking, which helps professionals like a boxer might do in a ring, knock somebody out, and he works with people to help them make better connections and more connections that are higher value. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. This is great. This is definitely not like being in the ring, but although I have the sweatshirt, I just came back from the ring, so I'm all warmed up. I'm raring to go.
Perfect. And I have a mother who was born in Ireland, so that makes me half Irish, and we always appreciate supporting the old country.
Well, there you go.
So let's put this in the context of nurses who are entrepreneurs who want to meet attorneys and help build their businesses. Tell us, why should we network as opposed to advertising or making cold calls?
Well, at the end of the day, with the type of services that a speaker, coach, trainer, or most entrepreneurs provide, if it's outside of products, it's really got to be through personal connections because people are investing and buying in the trust of working with us. So even social media, as great as it is a component of networking these days. But really, when you cut through it all, when you get to the final round, you see what I did there? To pull the whole boxing thing in.
Mm-hmm.
But really, at the end of it all, it's really about a personal connection, and it's about relationships before you can have trust in attorneys, have trust in nurses, have trust in speakers, trainers, whomever it is. It's about the relationship. And it's funny, I opened a TED Talk a number of years ago, and the theme was social media, and I was the last of 9 speakers. So every speaker that was there, and I got there late, I didn't know what everybody was talking about, but it was all about the social media landscape, and it's the best way to make connections and far reach and being scalable and all these things, and all that's all true. And I got up there as being the final speaker, knowing I'd have the final word, and I opened with, I didn't plan on doing this, but I opened with that my belief is that social media is actually ruining our ability to make more and better personal connections, which is affecting the way that we build relationships. And then I paused, like an awkward long pause, because there were gasps in the audience because it went against everything that every other speaker said. And then I went into all the reasons why. So in answering your question, those are the reasons why, is that with advertising, PR, social media, everything else, really at the end of it all, it's about a personal connection and a personal relationship. And the best way to make that happen is through networking.
I know that I've often heard attorneys say that they like to meet in person the people who they're going to be hiring to work on their cases. They get inundated with letters, with phone calls, with visits, with people trying to get past their gatekeeper. And yet, if they have a chance to stand in front of the person they want to hire, it's on a whole different level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. Yeah.
I know that when we spoke, or you spoke for the Florida Speakers Association not long ago, you talked about 1/3ers, 2/3ers, and 0/3ers. And
Yeah.
I'm not a math genius. I never pretend to be. In fact, my idea of a nightmare would be to stand by a cash register and make change all day. So I know you come from the restaurant business where being able to run that register is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I deliberately chose professions where I wouldn't have to make a lot of financial decisions. But let's start with the 1/3ers and the 2/3ers first before we get to the 0/3ers, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. Yeah, so I'm just a dumb boxer, I mean, not to say that boxers are dumb, but I might be one of them. But anyway, so just to put it in context, I guess what you're talking about is I talk about how you can't connect with everybody, even if you're really good at networking and really have strong interpersonal skills. Is that, and I consider myself fairly strong in that arena, which is to say I love talking to people and I love listening to people. But despite all of that, I find that I only truly connect with about a third of the people that I meet. And not to say that the other 2/3, that there's like hate or anything like that, resentment. It's just not a great connection. It's okay, but it's not like where you can ultimately take the connection to the next step, and then the next step where there's trust built, or where it's just effortless to speak to somebody. I mean, just to put that into context, think about the people that you're closest with, whether it's in business or even family or other personal relationships. I refer to that as the one-thirder dynamic. The one-thirder dynamic is that, so I meet 10 people, I truly only connect with about 3 of them. I meet 3 people, and I truly only connect with 1 of them. That's 1/3. So there's your math. So the one-thirder dynamic is where you just find such a connection that it's very easy for you to speak to one another. Like, it's effortless. There's tons to talk about. There's questions back and forth. There's mutual interest. That's the one-thirder dynamic. Now, this is now, we're into today is Black Friday. So not to completely date this podcast, but it's Black Friday. So yeah, that made yesterday Black Thursday, which is Thanksgiving. So I had a house full of 15 or so people, family members. And, there's some family members that you just get along with better than other family members. So the ones that I sat closest with, the ones that I spoke mostly to, and the ones that I was most interested, frankly, were the one-thirders, because it's the same thing with families. It's not that I hated anybody in my family. I don't, but there's just some people that you gravitate towards. So imagine what that feels like in a business circle if you're a nurse looking to build a business. Or on the other side of the continuum, if you're an attorney looking to build a business, right? It's typically those one-third relationships. And Pat also mentioned 2/3. That's the rest. Those are the others that, again, they're in the room, them, but they're not, this is horrible, but they're not your fave. And don't worry, because you're not their fave either. It's just the way life is, right? So that's the one-thirder dynamic, the 2/3 dynamic, and then the 0/3 dynamic. I rarely bring it up, but you did. So when you do the math, 0/3 equates to 0 the last time I ran that calculation. So that's in a place where, and hopefully nobody listening to this falls in this category, but when you're looking to build relationships, looking to network, looking to meet people, if you feel that you have a difficult time connecting with anyone, with respect, I would put you in the 0/3 category. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you're mean or that there's anything wrong, but what it could mean is that you may be behaving in a way where people might be repelled from you. And I'm not saying that you're going to stand out because you don't know how to behave, but rather, I'll put it in context of business, you're selling your services. You're just walking the room, throwing business cards at people, and you're selling your services. That's very 0/3 behavior, and people aren't going to generally gravitate to that. Or one of my family members, frankly, does nothing but talk about himself. That's fine, good guy, but not everybody wants to sit there and listen to a monologue about you. That's very 0/3 behavior. So again, we have to show up in certain ways, and when you're in business circles, the way you show up is going to be the way that manifests in terms of people that do connect with you, and who is it that you want to connect with, and what does that connection look like? And if you have the ability to have rapport back and forth, where it's pretty much even keel, even Steven, that's your 1/3 dynamic. And you can almost always force that issue by simply, acting in a networking based behavior, asking questions, shutting up as in listening, following up, following through, being engaged, being interested. That's the start. A lot there, I know. I just threw out.
I know. And I'm thinking about walking into a room and knowing only a few people in the room.
Yeah.
Legal nurse consultants are often in that position if they're going to meetings where they don't know the attorneys who are present.
Right.
And I know they're going to be wondering, well, how can I find my 1/3? Where are those people hiding, and how do I know when I walk in where to head?
Yeah. Well, it's not so much knowing about where the 1/3ers are. It's really about us acting as 1/3ers, at least our interpretation of 1/3ers, because, my version of a 1/3er might be somebody else's version of a 2/3er. How's that math, right? So it's really not a question of how do I behave to connect, with everybody, because we just won't, right? It's about I'm going to behave in a way that's good networking behavior, which is learning, asking questions, being focused, being engaged, being present, and making it about the other person. And imagine if you met people that felt that way too, that they were just as much about you as you are about them. So it's how you're going to be. So when you do present yourself with people, those that tend to behave the way you do are attracted to you. That's kind of the way it works. They come out of the woodwork and they want to talk to you because one-thirders want to talk to other one-thirders. And again, this gets back to like-minded because Pat, you might have a different interpretation of a one-third as I do. But my interpretation, it's not makes it right or wrong. It's just I want to meet more people that have my view of how to network. And you might want to meet people that have your view of in terms of networking. But as a business owner, the view has got to be about other people because remember, when we network, we're looking to build our business. But the people that we're networking with, they're not looking to build our business. They're looking to build their business. So the way to make that work is to create a we dynamic. How can we help one another? How can we support one another? How can we be resources for one another? So the conversation has got to support that.
Do you use those words when you are networking?
I do. I'm big. So I define networking as learning, helping. I define networking as a proactive, although sometimes it can be a reactive approach to meet people and learn from and potentially help them. So that's my lens when I'm meeting people is if I really like them and connect with them one-thirder, then I'm in this place of learning more and being in a position to help them. In which case I will always, and it may not be upon the first time I meet them, like it may be, but it may not always be. It might be, Pat, nice to meet you. I look forward to seeing you next month at the meeting. Because, maybe there's just not enough there, but you seem very nice. So, more to come sort of thing. But ultimately, if there's a really good feel, I love using that verbiage. I would love to figure out a way how I might help you. Or can you tell me how I can best be a resource for you? I put that right out there. And a third of the time, people will put that back out my way too. Well, how can I be a resource to you? So now you're in this we place. How can we be resources for one another? And that's a nice way to be.
I know that we can go to an event and we can plan to deliberately network. And we talked about that for a few minutes. Tell us about the difference between planned networking and serendipitous networking and how you handle those kinds of situations.
Right. So when I'm speaking with groups, I will often define networking as learning and helping, right? Because if you're focused on learning and helping, then people tend to help us learn and, learn from and help us right back. And there's the framework that I like to use is serendipitous and strategic networking, where sometimes in a reactive way, we meet a one-thirder we didn't intend to because, we're in the produce section of our favorite supermarket, or you're in an airport or what have you, but by demonstrating networking behavior by saying hello, hey, how are you? That sort of thing, where it could just be small talk as appropriate, that's serendipitous networking. So I often tell a story about connecting with people on airplanes. Not that I'm working the cabin or anything, but if I'm seated next to somebody, I'm only like this close to me, it feels weird for me to pretend that they're not there, So I will often, say good morning or good afternoon or whatever it is, and if they seem open and they just seem nice and they're receptive, I'll shake their hand. Well, my name is, hi, Michael, very nice to meet you. And then I'll just tell them, don't worry, I'm not going to bother you the whole flight. So I want to let them know that right up front, like I'm not going to be annoying, I'm not right, but I'm friendly. And a third of the time, that will take, I've got a business card around here somewhere of Brad, who I connected with on my flight home, this week. And it was just doing that. And Brad and I, and again, it wasn't the whole flight. And this was a short flight from San Francisco to Orange County, but we definitely connected. And he runs an IT company and does a lot of work in software, and that's what I was doing. And so we got into this whole thing. We exchanged cards. I don't know where it's going to go, but we've already done the whole LinkedIn thing and back and forth. But I guess the point is that if I said nothing, he probably would have said nothing, and I never would have seen him again. And I wouldn't have this interaction on LinkedIn that could lead to something for either one of us or perhaps both of us. The serendipitous network is behaving in a way where you open yourself up to the possibility of that happening just by being friendly, demonstrating networking behavior. And then strategic networking is really on purpose with purpose. So that's you going to cocktail parties, holiday, you know, it's the season now, right? So holiday parties, association meetings, chambers of commerce, networking mixers, the whole thing, you know, whereas now you've got a networking, you know, hat on, in which case now it's about, well, I want to work the room in a sense and not talk to everybody, but, you know, find the 2 or 3 people that you find a 1/3 connection to be able to ask questions. I'll ask questions and create, you know, create that back and forth. So whether it's planned or unplanned, both good, but the net of all that is that you're still demonstrating networking behavior, being open, being interested, being focused on learning, positioning yourself as a resource to potentially help, if not now, at some point later.
I know that you mentioned earlier about not selling, and I know that there are legal nurse consultants listening who will say to themselves, but why not? I'm standing in front of an attorney, and that attorney has the need for my services. Why can't I sell my services and talk about what I do? What's wrong with that?
It's not that it's wrong, and it's not that it's bad, but think of the reaction of an attorney or anybody if they go to a meeting and they're probably focused on building their own practice and they're meeting somebody that is pitching them. So that throws the frequency off, right? So I think it's equally as effective, but let me go back. It's more effective to be able to just talk about that I'm a legal nurse and this is what my focus is. How about yourself? Because if they need your services or are interested in your services, they're going to talk to you about that anyway. Like, you don't have to ask. Like, it's pretty much obvious that if you are running a business or running a practice and you're speaking to people and you're at an event where you're supposed to be networking, that probably you're looking to build your business. The behavior has got to be open, engaging, and don't forget, it takes time to build a relationship and to establish a connection and to establish trust. I mean, it really does. And that doesn't happen in a 2 or 3 or 5 minute conversation. That happens over time. So Pat, does it make sense for us to exchange cards? I would love to be able to speak to you more and figure out if there's ways that we may be able to help one another. Would you be open to that? That's the next footprint towards being able to establish a connection and build a relationship. And an attorney is way more likely to do business with a legal nurse over time and establishing a relationship when trust is established, rather than, I'd like to pitch you my services. So it's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just the way relationships work.
I saw that when I was exhibiting at attorney conferences and found that initially my thought when I started exhibiting was to meet as many people as possible. And then I discovered that as I had an established business, that most of the people at that conference I knew, and it was about reconnecting, seeing each other. They would ask me, well, Pat, what's new in your business? And if I didn't have something new, they would be disappointed. I could see them go, oh, what do I say to her now? She has nothing new.
Yeah.
So I think it's important what you just said in terms of reconnecting and building relationships and trust. It doesn't happen in 2 or 3 minutes, even though we desperately want it to happen in 2 or 3 minutes.
And we all do. We're all business people. And I've fallen into that myself. Because I'm looking to build a business too. And I sometimes have to remind myself. So if I meet somebody, so my niche is financial services. I work with mutual fund companies and annuity companies and broker dealers. And that's really, where I play. And if I'm at an event and I meet somebody that I know is in a position of being an economic buyer and I know hires people like me, I feel like I want to go there too and say, well, do you need my services? But if I have a connection, I will feel that, and I will almost say that, but it comes out as, I know you probably have hired a lot of people like me, but we don't know each other well. But I would love to explore ways that we can help one another, be resources for one another. And as we get to know, each other better, I wonder where our businesses might take us. Like, I've used that language because now it creates a we dynamic. And if there's an elephant in the room, I introduce it right there. Because I don't want this person to feel uncomfortable and put their gloves up like, oh, this guy's going to sell me. If it gets into that, I'm not going to build a connection, right? It's the opposite. I'm going to create a disconnection, so I put that out there So this way they breathe a sigh of relief because I'm now thinking the exact same thing that they're thinking. And I try to role reverse. If I'm in their position, I would feel that way too. So again, it's always, a boxer, it's about making more better connections, as a legal nurse, as an attorney, as a speaker trainer, whatever it is you do, it's still about how you're going to make more and better connections. And that should always be the default. But you brought up something else, Pat, I want to mention is you brought up exhibits. When you're exhibiting and you're at a conference where you're in a position, to have a table or have a booth and exhibit, that does change things a little bit. So networking looks and feels a little bit different. And I think a lot of the listeners probably can relate to this, is that when you are an exhibitor, you have paid for real estate called a booth, right? Or a table or an exhibit space. You have permission to sell a little bit. You bought that right. And that's what people expect. When they go to regular networking meetings, it's different. It's about collaboration and back and forth. When you're at an exhibit hall, there is a little bit more of a sales bent, but it still comes back to relationships. It still comes back to, when you're speaking to people and attorneys that are coming to your booth, finding out about their practice, what they're looking for, how you can still be a resource to them. They will be blown away if you're even at an exhibit and you don't come across with sales speak. But again, you can leave them with a card, you can leave them with a brochure, you can leave them with something. It's still there. And ask, would it be okay to follow up? I'd love to learn more about your practice, and over time, perhaps we can be resources for one another. I still default to we, as in a we thing.
Interesting. And going back to exhibiting for a minute, there are some very strict protocols in place by associations who say you can sell at your table, but you can't sell in the hallway. You can't sell while you're sitting next to the attorney in the conference room listening to the talk. You can sell at the cocktail party. So they try to prevent the attorneys from being inundated by legal vendors who are catching them wherever they can. And one of the big protocols is you can't sell if that attorney is talking to another exhibitor, distracting that attorney away from that person who's paid for their space.
That's right.
And I think what I just brought up emphasizes the importance of knowing the rules, both the written rules and the unwritten rules when it comes to networking and selling, so that you are not turning off a prospect.
Yeah, no question about it. And if you're going to sell something, maybe sell a webinar, maybe sell a meeting, because that doesn't come across as pushy, because it comes across as another footprint. What I'm doing is, and maybe you collect email addresses, or I've got a webinar coming up that's free, where you can learn more about, and I might have an opportunity to learn more about you as well. And if you position the webinar in the right way, that's a nice thing to sell, and you can create an RSVP and the whole thing. And again, it's about making more and better connections, and that's an excellent way of doing that.
And that is not a sales technique that I have seen legal nurse consultants use with attorney prospects, and that's brilliant.
And then on the next webinar, you sell your next webinar, and you sell it right. But what you're selling is footprints.
Yeah.
And now you can pitch a little, right? Because now it's still your real estate, so now you can pitch a little bit, right? And it's okay. Now you're building some grasp, you're building some gravity, and you have 2 webinars a month or something like that. I do that myself. I have a lot of people on my webinars because I'm always selling the next webinar, but some of my business comes from there too, without me really having to pitch all that hard, because of, invite your boss, invite your managing partner. Because now you always have something to invite people to. So imagine, the amount of gravity that you create to get more and more attorneys on that, and you're kind of the next happening clam bake in terms of the webinars, provided you've got great information. And it doesn't even always have to be you as a legal nurse that's on the webinar. It could be something like this, right? A podcast. And as long as you're adding value to your market, your attorneys, you've always got something to sell.
Many years ago, I went in with another legal vendor, and we rented a hotel room in Clark, New Jersey, right off of the Garden State Parkway. And we had a dinner in which we paid for the food of the attorneys, and we invited them for this dinner, and it was a networking dinner. And then afterwards, we talked about our services, the other company and me. And there were 2 attorneys in the room who heard something that really excited them regarding a role that I was marketing at that time of supporting attorneys by explaining medical records of
Mhm.
critically injured people so that the jury would understand what that big stack of records showed about what the person went through. And I could see the light bulbs go off in these guys' eyes, and they both ended up hiring me. And I got the cost of the dinner, which was, I think it was $400 or $500 between the two of us. I mean, it came back 1,000-fold just from that one connection. So what you do in terms of helping people with networking is really critical because it opens up all these opportunities that you never would have known existed.
Yeah, exactly right.
Wow. Our time is up, Michael, and I think we could probably talk for hours about this topic because it's so fascinating and you have such great knowledge about it.
Thank
Some of
you.
the things that I think I got away from this is, again, reiterating when you're talking to attorneys, offering to be a resource to them. You know, some of the nicest thank you letters that I have ever gotten in my business is when I have referred a case to an attorney
Mhm.
has then taken that case and made money with it. And thank you, Pat. I really appreciate this. Is wonderful. So nice of you to think about me. I mean, it just goes on and on. And yeah, for the attorney, for the plaintiff attorney, it's getting cases. For the defense attorney, it's minimizing the damage or winning the cases so that there is no payout.
Yes.
And they are always interested in knowing how to connect with people who are credible and great at their role so that they get the best resources available when they're litigating their cases.
Yeah. Yeah. No question about it. So there's a lot of value that that is provided. So it really, and you know what I love about what you do, and what probably a lot of the attendees here do, is that what's cool is that you already know your target market. And a big part of what I'm sharing with financial advisors is how they can identify, develop, establish their target market. But you know who it is. So now it's a question of where you need to go, what you need to say, and with whom you need to say it. And that's networking, right? Going to the right places, saying the right things, meeting the right people. But then it's behaving in the right manner. So once you have all of that happening, it's now demonstrating we behavior, learning, helping, asking questions, being engaging, being enrolling, being interested, and being a resource. And talk about math. That's the perfect mathematical equation for building a successful business. It just is. Like, there's no downside to that. You know, it ekes out the people you don't want to be working with, but what it does is it creates a gravitational pull that brings the people that you do want to be working with and making more and better connection with, right there with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, how can our listeners find out more about the services that your company offers?
Well, my company offers speaking, training, coaching, and consulting services in the area of networking and referral marketing. To those that are interested in learning more about that, you can go to knockoutnetworking.com, and you can see some of the things that I provide. I do have a book out called Knockout Networking, which is available now, and I've got a new book coming out, which it's already posted on Amazon, which is Knockout Networking for Financial Advisors, ... and other sales producers. So an updated version, which will be out in April of 2020, although pre-sales are coming in right now, and I think it'll actually be available probably towards the end of March. And if I can be a resource to anybody, be my pleasure to be that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
All right.